let's just start with, I'm knackered. I'm very tired. So I'm sorry if this is a bit of a all over the place video. Things are weird. I'm weird. It's gonna be weird, but I'm gonna talk about some great books, so it's all okay. Hello, my name is Miranda. Welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. And if you have, hello. Hi. Hello. Today I'm going to talk to you about all of the books. Not all of the books. My favourite books of 2021 so far. It has been a very weird reading year for me because I have given basically no books 5 stars. I've given about 6 books 5 stars, and that's out of about 40. So it's been not great. I've also been very like up and down with like the amount that I've been reading. So I haven't finished a book now in about 2 weeks. So I've included 10 plus an extra honourable mention, which even though it's not like the best thing I've read this year, I think it is great and it made me cry, so it deserves a mention. So we're going to start off with a book that I've mentioned about a gazillion times on my channel since I read it. I think it was the 4th book that I read in 2021, so I read it pretty early on, so I've had a long time to talk about it and shout about it all the time, which I have been, and that is My Name Is Why by Lemn Sissay. I did mention this in my last week's video. What was it? The mid-year book freak out tag. I mentioned it there, and I also mentioned My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. So I'm not going to talk in loads of detail about those two. So My Name Is Why is Lemn Sissay's memoir of his childhood growing up in care, and he moves between different foster homes and different families and some care homes, and it's very sad. Lemn Sissay is he's a poet, so he has a really beautiful way of writing, and at the beginning of every chapter of My Name Is Why there are it's like a few lines of poetry, which really adds something to it. And also he includes all of the like care workers reports, like social workers reports, and kind of letters from his foster families and things like that. They're all included in there because part of the story is that he had to fight for his own his own childhood, his own history essentially, and it took him a long time to be able to access all those documents. It's a very short book. I listened to it on audio and I think it was between 4 and 6 hours. That might be wrong, but it's very short, and he reads the audiobook, and I would really recommend the audiobook because it gets across the pain and the loneliness so powerfully, and yeah, I couldn't stop listening to it, and whenever I wasn't listening to it I was thinking about it, and I have been thinking about it ever since I finished it. So yeah, it's amazing. Please read it. Then My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell is also a very sad book that I listened to on audiobook, but it is a novel. So it's about Vanessa, who is essentially, she's a schoolgirl and she is groomed by her teacher, and then you flip between the perspective of her as, I think she's about 15, and then her as in her 30s, a woman in her 30s, and you switch between these two perspectives because the older version of Vanessa still views the relationship as a kind of mutual one, as a loving one, and she is having to come to terms with that and figure out what actually happened. This was one of the hardest books that I've ever read. It was incredibly just painful and uncomfortable to read, but it is expertly handled and incredibly moving. And yeah, like with My Name Is Why, this book just lives in my mind, and I can't stop thinking about it. yeah, it's amazing. Then we have a book that I don't know where it is right now, I can't find it, but it's one that I've read fairly recently, and that is America Is Not the Heart by Elaine Castillo. This book just made me really happy. Like whenever I was reading it, it felt like going back to old friends. So it's about Hero, who is a Filipino woman, and she has to travel to the US to live with some family members, and she's been disowned by her parents, and she's trying to kind of like rebuild her life and find new connections and relationships in the US, and find her place. And essentially it's just about her and her family and all the people that she kind of gets to know and makes friends with and builds relationships with in America, and it's really, really beautiful. You just get to spend a long time with these characters, getting to know their history, seeing them get to know each other, and it's just really beautiful. I don't know, I've talked about this one fairly recently as well because I finished it in June, so it was in my last wrap up, and yeah, I'll probably link that in the description because I talk about it in more detail there. I don't want to repeat myself so soon, but yeah, it's lovely and made me feel very warm and fuzzy, even though it is quite sad, but it's happier than most of the books I read, to be honest. Next we have Nightingale Point by Luann Goldie. So this is not a perfect book. I didn't rate it 5 stars when I first read it. I had a couple of issues with it, but honestly I can't remember them now. Like, it's just one that has stuck with me, and I remember the really kind of intense emotional reading experience, because when I read this I was really struggling to like put it down and walk away from it, and I got so invested in all of the characters, and it just felt so like just so real to me. So this is essentially about a group of different people, different ages, and they all live in one flat block in London, and then one day a disaster happens, and essentially it looks at their lives before, during and after this disaster, and kind of goes through like sort of different periods of time afterwards, and looks at how their lives have been impacted by it. It's so emotional, like thinking about some of the relationships that are built from like what happens in this book makes me it really like gets me, and I loved all of the characters in this. They're not perfect, but they're so endearing, and they all have so much going on. Like, there's so much to them, and they all feel like real people, but they are also like, it allows the author to kind of explore lots of different things. And like I said, even though it's not like the best written thing I've read, it really had like a deep emotional impact on me, and like the tension and the everything really got me, and I just loved it. Next we have a poetry collection, and that is Life of the Party by Olivia Gatwood. So this is a collection about, well, many things. Like, mostly it's about rage and fear, and it's about relationships between different like young women. It's about true crime, and kind of the fear that you feel as a woman sort of reading about criminal convictions and sort of assaults that happen, and the kind of permanent fear that lives with you. It's also a lot about like just joy and living, and the incredibly intense relationships that can come from being a young person. What I love about this so much is that it almost feels like a memoir told in poems, because it kind of goes like chronologically. So you get poems about being a young girl, and then poems about being a teenager, and then poems about like becoming a young adult, and it all kind of flows together. And then experiences that are talked about in early poems will then be revisited and kind of reshaped in later poems as kind of like memories, which is really beautiful, like beautifully done. My lovely friend Cherry from Cherry Actually Reads on YouTube, she read this after I recommended it, which made me incredibly happy, and she loved it too. So it's not just me, you don't just have my recommendation. Next is Transcendent Kingdom by Giovannis, which I feel like I've mentioned a lot, so I'm sorry if this is the 18 billionth time you're hearing me talk about this. So just in case me going on about it already wasn't enough, this is about Gifty, who is a neuroscience like PhD research person, and she is doing research into reward-seeking behaviour and trying to find patterns in the brain to understand addiction, essentially, because she has a family connection to addiction. But it's also about her own mental health and her caring for her mother, who is very depressed, and also a lot about religion. So basically Gifty has lots of questions about why people do things, why people behave the way they do, and she's grown up in a very religious family, and she's trying to find solutions to the questions that religion couldn't answer for her. There is a lot going on in this book, and it's all balanced perfectly. It all feels incredibly natural, so the characters aren't just like vehicles for philosophical discussions and questions. They feel like real people, but there is also so much kind of interesting stuff going on in here, and it's just brilliantly written. I think it is excellent and I love it very much. So next is Giovannis Room by James Baldwin. So this is another book that I finished quite recently, and I am so obsessed with it. Like, it's just amazing. So this is about an American man who is living in Paris and kind of trying to run away from himself, like his own identity, and he meets Giovanni, who is a kind of barman, I guess, and they start a relationship. So it's about like how they affect each other in this relationship, but also a lot about shame and being American, and what it means to be a foreigner, and all kinds of things. Again, there's so much going on in this. It's about 160 pages long. It's incredible. The writing is insane. Like, James Baldwin's way of like putting things in words, like putting incredibly complex things in words and making them incredibly comprehensible and seem simple, is just second to none, and I think this is a masterpiece, essentially. I'm incredibly excited to reread it. I will definitely do that soon, and I know that I will get even more from it. It's amazing. Next we have Homie by Danez Smith. So this is another book of poetry, and this is essentially, it's mostly about friendship and love, and just being obsessed with your friends and people that you know, and it's so full of joy. Like, there are lines in this that just made me immensely happy. There are parts about grief and loss as well, but mostly it's a kind of celebration of people and connections between people, and I absolutely loved it. I don't think there's much more I can say about it really, apart from that I think it is utterly beautiful and it made me feel all the feels. Next is Educated by Tara Westover, which I was incredibly late to the party on because everyone read this about 2 years ago and said how amazing it was, and I was like and then I listened to the audiobook and I was like, oh okay, I get it now, because this book is absolutely incredible. So this is a memoir about Tara's experience growing up and then leaving her incredibly, well, they are a family of Mormons, and her father is against all kinds of like government authority. He also believes that the end is coming, and they are basically preparing for the apocalypse. So Tara grows up not going to school, not going to hospitals when necessary, and essentially living this very kind of isolated existence with just her family, being as self-sufficient as possible and preparing for the apocalypse. So the first part of the book kind of goes through that experience, and the second half is about her, well, yeah, her kind of trying to come to terms with like relearning the world and relearning who she is, independent from her family, which is incredibly powerful, especially given all of the stuff she goes through as a child. Like, it is absolutely wild, like what she goes through in terms of like being put in real physical danger. It's the most incredible book, and I loved every minute. Another memoir is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. So this is about Carmen's time in a relationship with another woman that was very abusive, and she looks at it through lots of different lenses, and it's like she's trying to make sense of her time in this relationship, and what happened, through trying, you know, like throwing different ideas at it and seeing what makes sense. And it's incredibly powerful, just beautifully written, and everyone I know who has read this has loved it. So read it if you haven't already. You probably have, but if not, read it. I realise that I'm going through on all of these quite quickly, and it's because partly I don't really have anything else to say apart from I love them all because they're all great, but also I feel like I've talked about them a lot, so if you want more like specific thoughts, I will link all of my wrap-ups that I've talked about them down in the description, and I'll also leave links to where you can buy them. Amazing. But finally we have the little bonus, which is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. So I really love this. Kind of similar to Nightingale Point, I feel like I have to mention it because of just how much fun I had reading it, and I loved it very much, and I love all the characters, and even though there were bits that kind of annoyed me, I still think that this is rude, an excellently written sequel. I'm just putting it on my face now, and it's beautiful, and I love it very much. Anyway, I think that's it. Oh my god, I'm exhausted. I'm so sorry if this has been a weird video and the frames have changed. I've had to stop filming several times and then start again, so it's been a whole time. But those are all the books I've loved most so far this year. I'm really hoping that the second half of the year brings more amazing books, because I've had quite a lot of just mediocre ones, and I really want like mind-blowing stuff. I'm aware that it's kind of how I'm reading as well. Like, I feel like I need to stop forcing myself to read and just let it happen, rather than like, yeah, putting pressure on myself to finish a certain number of books. That being said, my TBR number is this. I'm pretty sure it's still 118, which it has been for the last like 2 weeks, because I haven't been finishing any books for a while, but that's okay. No pressure here, no pressure. We're reading for fun. We do this because we enjoy it. I need to remember that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you very much for being here, and just continuing to watch my videos. I really do appreciate it. I never really say this, but if you want to leave me a comment, I really, really appreciate it. Again, I love reading comments. It's my favourite thing about doing this, and I want to know anything. Literally tell me anything. I know people always say that and I'm like, oh, but no one cares. I care. Tell me anything, please. Please. I'm so desperate. Tell me what you've been reading. Tell me what you like. Tell me if you hate these books. I don't care. Tell me what you ate for lunch today. I'll love it. Anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you soon.